And I'll call this regular session of the Mayor and City Council meeting at 6:05, Thursday, October 5th, 2017, here at City Hall Complex Council Chambers. I'd like to call it to order so we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. You please join us in the pledge. Thank you. Commander Diaz, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Thank you, Auditor.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Before you take your seats, we don't have somebody to lead us in the invocation, but I'd like to take a moment of silence for the tragedy we had in Las Vegas, the people that lost their life and those that are recuperating, and all the loved ones that are suffering along with them, and the city of Las Vegas. So we'll take about a 15-second moment of silence. If you'll please bow your heads. Thank you. You may be seated. Did we have any call to the public or anything? Thank you. Okay. We have one call to the public from Dolores Knapp. Would you like to come to the podium? State your name and address, please.
Dolores Knapp, and I'm at 936 Rancho Grande Circle here in Nogales. And, well, there's some other people supposed to come and join me, but I guess, you know, we're older people, so they have something else to do over there. Either taking a nap or something, I don't know.
You can speak for them, though.
Yeah, well,
okay.
I do represent them, and we meant to come forward earlier, but it never happened, so but it just happened at the time that I am coming forward. It seems like work has started. It just, you know, we've been waiting for about 30 years to have our street paved. This is the Rancho Grande subdivision that I'm talking about, okay? And all we have is potholes all over the place, and it just happened this week. We saw something, you know, the machines go in and clean the sidewalk, you know, the grass and everything was piled up, and there was a 50-foot patch that was, I don't know if it's, you call it paving or not, but anyway, that subdivision has never been paved at all. I mean, all we have is potholes. What we get is maybe some gravel thrown into the potholes, and that's about it. And we lived there about 28 years since it started out, the subdivision started out. And the street has never been paved. The only thing we've gotten is a sidewalk, because and that was about maybe 8 years ago, that we got a sidewalk on one side of the street because people are complaining that their kids were walking on the roadway and they were afraid for their safety, and that's how we got a sidewalk. So now, you know, we want to plead on behalf of everybody. We've written letters, my husband and I have written letters, and I have one here. The latest one was back in April 6th of 2015, which addressed to you, sir, and council at the time, asking that you look into it to see if we could get any kind of relief to get it paved. But we never got an answer. And we got, you know, we got a petition with signatures of the residents there. And we're mostly older people, I mean, retired people, and you know, and I feel like Puerto Rico, we've been abandoned. So, you know, it's just a comparison. But anyway, we saw some machines going up this week on Monday, and they've been putting gravel on the potholes. Now, I don't know if you have any information, if we're going to get this street paved finally or not. I don't know. We're here to find out and plead with you that we do need help. from the residents there in Rancho Grande subdivision.
Although there's, I think, is that all you have to say about that?
Yeah, I'm just
All right.
pleading that we
I think
need.
I got the good news for you. Normally we don't answer calls to the public, but we've been looking at that area. As a matter of fact, I got news. I went last week to take a look to see the before and after. So you could probably address or call maybe the city manager's office tomorrow, and he can give you an update on the plans there.
Yeah, we're gonna get paid for just one of
Well,
those.
he probably knows better. He told me that they were going to work there, and I went to take a look just to see the before and the after, and I know it needs a lot of work.
It needs a lot
But
of.
I didn't ask him to how much they're going to do. But if you call him, he'll be available, and you can call tomorrow. And if you need the number, you
Who
can
do I
get it.
call?
Mr. Carlos Rivera. Carlos.
Okay, because we really, really need help.
Yes.
And that subdivision, like I said, it's been there maybe 40 years, starting in 79. We moved there in 80-some, so we've been there about 29 years. And the only thing we've gotten is a sidewalk, and that's it. Because people are complaining that they're for the safety of the kids. So now the kids are probably grown up by now.
And I noticed it
still-
deteriorated since the
Oh,
last
yeah.
time I went up there.
Yeah, there was
So-
a patch. Somebody went in and put in a patch, like a 50-foot patch this week. And that was like in the middle of the street somewhere.
Oh.
But that's it.
But here, you can discuss it with him. He'll give you a more thorough explanation.
Okay.
But I think your prayers have been answered. They'll be taken
I
action.
hope so, because we were been in one time. We don't want to die before that thing gets.
No, no.
But yeah, that subdivision, you know, it's mainly, you know, older world residents. They've been there for maybe 30 years. And, you know, they want something done. Some people are supposed to come, but like I say, I don't know.
Well, let them know we took notice, and I, like I said, Mr. Rivera can get you in more, give you more information about the project, how it's going to be done and handled, so he'll be able to help you out.
I want to give credit to Mr. Kessler. My husband's been calling him for this, and he's sent out people, and at least they throw some gravel on the puddles once in a while. So we've been getting his help, so I gotta give him credit. He's helping us.
Okay.
So I will call him, and
Okay.
hopefully.
Thank you for bringing it up again, but help is on the way. See, I'm learning from him. Huh? It seems like that's the only call to the public, so pass it down to Anna and continue with our agenda. We have a presentation tonight from Arizona Mining Project update. Mr. Councilman Lucero.
Thank you, Mayor. The project in the Patagonia Mountains is moving right along, and we've been starting to give updates at different forums throughout the county. We did a community presentation in Patagonia a week or two ago. We presented to the Santa Cruz County Board of Supervisors yesterday, met with the governor yesterday, updated him on the project, and I thought we were going to have a meeting last night, so we were prepared to give a presentation last night, but since we're having the meeting tonight, I asked my boss, Mr. Taylor, if he could come and present to the city council to update the community on what's happening over there, and hopefully answer any questions if we got time. But I'll turn it over to Mr.
Thank you,
Taylor.
Mr. Taylor. Welcome. We're always glad to see you here in the neighborhood.
Thank you so much for coming, Mayor. Thank you, Council, for the opportunity. As you said, my name is Don Taylor. I'm Chief Operating Officer of Arizona Mining, and we're real happy with what's going on here. We're very fortunate. We've got literally a world-class discovery, and it's going to be a very large mining project for a very long time. And one of the reasons we like to get out into communities like this and talk about this project is it's going to have a long impact, hopefully a very positive impact, especially with jobs. And as I go through here, if you've got some questions, hold them to the end. But anyway, it'll give you an idea of the size of the project, what it's going to look like, and the impact on the community. And we always have to put this up. It's a legal thing in case you guys run out and want to buy stock off some forward-looking statement that I might make, which I usually do. But anyway, you're at your own risk. Arizona Mining's a Canadian-based on the Toronto Stock Exchange company with offices in Vancouver, Toronto, Tucson, and Patagonia. All of our senior management live here in Arizona, and almost 97% of our employees are all based or live and are sourced right here in southern Arizona. One of the things we always get questions about is air, water, traffic, those sorts of things. And one of the things I want to assure you, we are probably as big as environmentalists and outdoorsmen as anybody out there, because that's how we've grown up. We're going to have a lot of employees who are going to be living and working in these communities, and so we're going to breathe the same air, drink the same water, drive on the same roads. Our kids are going to the same schools as everybody else is, so we're committed to these communities and a long-term relationship that benefits everybody. Now, the Hermosa project, we're actually fortunate we've got two projects out there. The one I'm going to talk about tonight is called the sulfide deposit, or the Taylor sulfide deposit. We've had a watershed event in April of this year. We completed what's called a preliminary economic assessment, and it's the first high-level look at what the economics are of the project and one of the best ways to proceed with it. And what I'll show you in a minute had very robust economics. But we also came from that at steady state. This project alone employed about 525 people for about 30 years, okay? And the deposit continues to grow. The other thing I'll show you is that we've spent about $66 million US in the area here since January 2016 through August of this year. Prior to that, we'd spent about another 30 or 35 million that we're not accounting for. And again, one of the knocks against mining projects is some of them are short-lived. This will not be the case here. And again, this looks like this project will run at least 30. It could go as long as 50 years or longer. One of the other critiques we get a lot is, oh, you're a Canadian-based company and you're going to take the profits and run. And I want to assure you that that's not the case. One of the comparisons I love to make is when you reach in your pocket, pull out your Apple iPhone or your iPad. Apple's a company that's sourced here in the United States for its headquarters, but chooses to build its products overseas and pays substandard wages to foreign workers. They take their profits and hide them in places like Ireland, the U.S., and the U.K. Well, Arizona Mining, what you'll see here, out of that $66 million we spent, 92% of it's been spent right here in southern Arizona to employees, vendors, products. There's only about $5.3 million out of that has been spent elsewhere, and it would have been spent here except there wasn't a vendor to take care of the project that we needed to do. We're very careful that we select our employees and our vendors here in southern Arizona, again, trying to add to the economy here, not someplace else. Yeah. This is the land package out there on the right side. You'll see that there's two colors there. Our private lands are in yellow, and our unpatented mining claims are claims held by us. We own the mineral rights by paying fees to the federal government. But the service is administered by the U.S. Forest Service, so for anything we do out there, we go for permits with the Forest Service. As I mentioned, there's two projects out here. One that we won't talk about tonight is this one right here. It's called the Central Deposit. It's a manganese silver deposit. Manganese is a strategic metal to the United States. Every pound of manganese that comes into the country right now, 98% comes from China. The other 2% comes from South Africa. And so we believe at some point in the not too distant future, one of the things that manganese is used for is these electric batteries that go into cars, the electric cars. And so we believe, not the distant future, that we're going to have people knocking on the door wanting us to go ahead and proceed with this project simply because of the source of manganese. The bigger project, the one I'm going to focus on tonight and talk about, is called the Taylor zinc sulfide deposit. It's located right here. Just a geology cross-section, and the thing I want to point out in this is not a geology lesson, but in the PEA, and this is the outline of the mineralization in gray, or that's not gray, I guess it's brown, and here. That's what was used in the PEA. Since then, and I mentioned earlier that the deposit is growing, and that was 25 years here. This is material that we've drilled since then. We haven't put into any kind of an economic assessment, but the point with the slide is that the project's getting bigger, which is going to translate to more jobs for a longer period of time. At the project, we won't make any metal. terms of metal itself. We make two concentrates. We make what's called a lead concentrate or lead concentrate. It will make zinc concentrate. The reason that's important, especially for Nogales, is that those concentrates will be shipped very likely to the Port of Guaymas. And it's going to mean a lot of trucks and a lot of mail. One of the things we're preparing for right now is we're doing transportation studies to see how best to accommodate that so that we're not an overburden on anything. And also we've got to be cognizant of the financial cost to actually get it there. But anyway, again, one of the things about this slide is you look at our zinc recoveries are very good, up at 93% zinc, and we get almost 96% of the lead. And again, one of the things you look for in these types of deposits are the warts or the things that cause them to be non-economic. We're fortunate in this case that won't be the issue with this deposit. Yeah, I mentioned that preliminary economic assessment. What this is, it's a series of independent engineers that view all the aspects of the deposit, put them in a report and tell us how economically it will fare. What we found is the project will return 42% internal rate of return after taxes. Has a net present value and a discount rate of 8% of about 1.3 billion. So it's a very robust project, and it's got a quick payback of about 1.7 years. On the capital side, so the money that will be spent in the ground on infrastructure and building the deposit over the life of the mine is about US $1 billion, and that'll be spent right here in Santa Cruz County. Now, a closer look. If you look at the total money that'll be spent by us and generated, we'll generate about $9.5 billion based on the economics that we see in the PEA. And again, these are going to get bigger. Our operating cost, and again, those are dollars that will be spent right here over the 25-year mine life in Santa Cruz County, $4 billion. The capital cost I mentioned earlier, life of mine, it's $1 billion. Pre-production, it's about $600 million. Income taxes, we'll pay about $1.3 billion for a total that'll go back into the community and into the state of about $6 billion. When you look at the direct payments in the state of Arizona, the property taxes over this time frame will be about $10 million, severance taxes of about $60 million, and then income taxes of almost $1.3 billion. And again, direct back into the economy here in southern Arizona. Transportation is always an issue. The project's located about 6 miles southeast of Patagonia, in the Patagonia Mountains near the old town of Harshaw. We're looking at various routes on how to get our concentrates out because it does a lot of material. Looking at various routes on how we'll get that out and how we'll actually transport those concentrates. And there's a series of things we're looking at. We're looking at trucks. We're looking at rail. We're even looking at slurry pipelines to eliminate some of the trucks. And looking at combinations of those. I think most likely at this point, and nothing's been hard drawn yet, but I believe most likely is it will look at a combination of truck and rail. And we're still up in the air on whether we're going to use gas or electric. If I had to guess today, it'll be electric power from DP. And then for transport, when you think about 525 people in 2 shifts, it's a lot of personal vehicle transportation. So what we're looking at is working with the communities, Tucson, Sierra Vista, Nogales, looking at parking rides, so we can actually have those employees park in a lot, and they will bus them into the site to try to cut down on some of the congestion. As I mentioned, there's a deep water port at Guaymas, and it's the most likely candidate because they handle a lot of the copper and lead and zinc concentrates today, and we would just be an incremental add to that. They're already set up for this, so the most likely scenario is that we'll, from some form of truck and rail to Guaymas to a deep water port, and then those concentrates will go, some will probably be at Peñoles in Mexico, many of those will go abroad, Europe, Australia, Asia. The reason for that is in the United States today, there are 0 lead smelters. They've all been eliminated due to environmental concerns and the perception of environmental concerns. And there's only, to my knowledge, there's 1 primary zinc smelter in the United States. So what we'll do is we'll send these concentrates overseas someplace, they'll make metal out of them and sell them back to us. Unfortunately, that's the way it works these days. This is just a look at the site. This is one of our larger private tracts here in the red outline. And what you'll see is we agreed, we took this property from the state of Arizona because it was in a receivership, and they took it over, and we're looking at spending $10 million on reclamation projects. We stepped in, thought we could do it cheaper. We needed the land for our mining footprint, so we agreed to do this reclamation project with the state. Unfortunately, it's grown. We thought it was going to cost about $3 million, and now we're up to $25 million because of some extra work that we will do there. But it's work that needs to be done. The main thing is, if you look at these areas on the map that look like they're grassy areas, there's a couple, one here, one here, one here. What those are old tailings facilities that were used by Asarco up in about 1965. Anyway, those tailings were put on unlined facilities. And so now some of the metals out of there are leaching into the soils. And so what we are going to do on our nickel is we're going to pick those up and we're going to move them, and then we're going to put in a lined facility here. It'll be what they call low perm soil. It's basically a clay liner and a geotechnical liner on top of that, and then more low perm soil, so that there's a 3 layers there, so that material can never leach into the soils again. Anyway, it's quite an expense. And then the other thing we're doing is we've got an underflow, under drain collection pond here. Holds about 9 million gallons, and that's to take care of it. We have a 24-hour 100-year rain event in this area here, and we can hold it all in that pond. And then lastly, we're going to build a water treatment plant out here, and that's so we can treat any of the mine-influenced waters or any of the waters off those tailings. We can treat them and release those, and they'll be to Arizona state standards, which is actually more stringent than drinking water. So that's where the $25 million are going. Right now at the site, we're starting some of this work. Right now we've got about 225 people employed either directly or through contractors at our site, and have had for about 6 months. I anticipate that number is only going to go up from here. Some of the trips we've had out there, we've had some great communication, certainly with the county and the city of Nogales, and very appreciative of that. We're, best practices in the mining industry, we're probably the second most regulated industry, certainly in the United States. The only industry that surpasses us for regulation is the airline industry. Only we report to more of the acronyms for sure in terms of government entities, but what we're doing is we're trying to make choices up front that make sense not only for the community but also financial sense. One of the things we're going to do is we're going to use dry stack tails to help minimize our water usage. We're going to put about 45 to 70% of the tailings that we will generate back underground. So instead of having on the surface where they're an issue, most of them we're going to put back underground. That allows us to do 2 things. It minimizes our infant at the surface, so a smaller footprint. The other thing it does, it helps us maximize the extraction of the ore body, which is also important. It makes the mine life run longer. One of the other issues we come out against all the time is that, is there enough water? Well, we've just finished 3 wells on the property. All 3 of those wells are very good producing wells. We know that based on what the hydrologists do there, is that we'll be able to supply our own water needs from the property for the entire life of the mine. We won't be required to go out and buy or bring water in from the outside. We think that's an important point. And what it actually looks like now will actually be long water. We may have water to sell. Anyway, that's always good news. Yeah, just a checklist of what's going on here. This year we were looking to complete the PEA, or the preliminary economic assessment. That's happened. We're starting on the voluntary remediation program. We're just waiting on a couple of state permits, and hope to have those in December and start construction. We just finished financing. The project is a very robust project. We actually had an Australian company come in, and they bought about 15% of our stock for 110 million Canadian dollars, or about 88 million US dollars. They're an existing lead zinc producer and miner, and so that was a great endorsement for us on how good this project really is. We're still testing the project in terms of exploration drill. We certainly don't know how big it's going to be yet. That's only a positive thing. And then the next big phase for us is we're going to try to deliver a feasibility study in about the middle of 2018. The difference between the PEA, the engineering tolerances are about plus or minus 25%. It's always plus, it's never minus 25%, it's plus 25%. When we get to the feasibility study, it'll be plus or minus 5%. And so you've drawn a lot tighter circle around the engineering tolerances. And just a schedule of that, we'll be drilling out in this area for a long time to come. The water issue we think we've solved. The feasibility study we hope to deliver in the middle of next year. We're waiting on these 2 permits. Again, the aquifer protection permit for the tailings facility, and the ZIPDs permit is to allow us to treat and discharge the water back into the aquifer. And again, what we hope to do after those permits and that tailings facility is completed, we'll start a decline into the deposit. It's about a 2.5-year proposition to get to the depth that we need to get to. So anyway, we're looking forward to that and trying to get it into first production, very latest of 2020, most likely into early 2021. Now, a couple of questions. You've heard me say what I think about the deposit, but here's an objective point of view. This slide was put together by a Canadian, it's actually an international bank called Scotiabank. If this deposit was in production today, we'd be the 4th largest zinc producer on the planet. So a very substantial and significant zinc producer. Again, this is another slide that was put together by others, and one of the things, if you're in the commodities business, the commodity cycles, price of oil, price of gas go up and down all the time. Well, when the prices come down, the producers always get squeezed. What I like to show about this slide is this is most of the major zinc producers in the world. They don't worry about the names or any of that. It doesn't matter. But histogram is how much it costs them to make a pound of zinc. What you'll see, the lowest cost producer is about 38 cents a pound. The highest cost producer is about $1.40. Today, the price of zinc is about $1.45. And historically, the average price of zinc is about 87 to 90 cents a pound. And what you see is when the price comes down, and it will come down, all these guys have to stop their operations. And when the price drops again, these guys will have to stop their operations. The great thing about this deposit, it's on the very low end of the cost curve. And so the pain will have to be pretty significant before we have to shut down. I don't expect that to ever happen, by the way. We actually make a pound of zinc for about 51 cents a pound. Now, what's zinc used for, just to give you an idea of what these products go to. Zinc is the 4th largest traded commodity in the world. Mainly it goes into galvanization, so car bodies, studs that go into the walls, all the rebar that goes into bridges, building infrastructure. The other thing is the faucets in your house, the brass fittings on doors, those sorts of things. The other thing that's getting very popular with zinc is that it's now used in most of the agricultural fertilizer that goes on the fields. The other product that will be the end member here is lead. Lead is one of those things that 80% of it, and I'm surprised that number's that low, 80% of the lead goes into lead acid batteries. Every single car on the planet has a lead acid battery, even the electric ones. The reason for that is that they can't find another deep cycle source that'll run the 12-volt system in these cars. The other use is that when you notice that the power's out and your cell phone's still working, the backup batteries in your cell towers are these lead acid batteries, again, because of their deep cycle characteristics. Obviously, some of the other uses are alloys, cable sheathing when you're laying high tensile or high power lines underground, and then obviously shot and ammunition. Anyway, we think we've got a world-class resource out here. No warts, big grade, size, and continuity. We got great metallurgy. Very desirable commodity mix. There's a tremendous shortage in zinc right now, which is why the price is as high as it is. We've just hired a team of individuals, experts to help us build this project together. They've got about 350 years of experience, not just building mines, but building mines, operating mines, and reclaiming mines. We've got no debt. We've got about $76 million in the bank to begin these remediation projects and push the project forward. And you'll see some of those activities that we're spending that money on down there. That's the presentation. We're always looking for talent. We're starting to work with some of the schools and the junior colleges here to start to train people. Some of the skill sets, and mining's different than a lot of other things. Engineers obviously, but geologists, drillers, welders, electricians, truck drivers, all of those are skill sets that sometimes are available, sometimes not. But we're going to be working in the underground environment, which is a different environment than anybody else works in. And so sometimes it takes a special character to be able to do that. But, we're going to be working with a lot of the communities and seeing if we can build this talent around here. We won't be able to retain it all, we know that. But it's still worthwhile to do that. We're starting to even work with some of the high schools. So anyway, if you're a vendor, and this is where to get on our vendor list, and if you want to look for employment, that's where we go to. These are both on our website, by the way, so feel free to go out there. Anyway, Happy to field any questions if there are any.
Yes, we have,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Taylor, thank you for the presentation. It's a great update. I've been out to the location of Patagonia twice, and I have found from the beginning stages to where I was last there about 4 or 5 months ago that there is a caring attitude for the environment there. There's a lot of respect for the environment. You make sure that what you take down, you replace. And you don't just go in there and bulldoze down our natural environment there. So I think that says a lot. That I was very impressed with that when I saw that. I just hope also that I know that Arizona Mining is working real hard, especially with the efforts of Mr. Lucero with our community college district and Pima Community College to work out a job training here locally so that people can come over there and be trained there in conjunction with Pima Community College. And I think that'll offer a lot of opportunities for the people here in our community there for job training. I would just hope, Mr. Taylor, that you would consider, I felt kind of upset at the mine when you moved your office out here, okay? And I hope that you consider opening up some kind of an office here in Nogales, because I think that Arizona Mining had an office here. You moved it out of here, and I think that an office, some sort of structure here for that would be a great help when you're at full capacity. So I hope you consider that, because I think that would be helpful for us over here a little too.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm glad to hear you say that you noticed, when you were at the site, the care that we take, because one of the great things about what we're doing, and mining's an integral part of society. It's going to get done somewhere, somehow, to provide us with the metals we need. But some of the open pits that you see in Arizona, and again, not throwing stones, right? One of the great things about this underground operation is that not only will we have a much smaller footprint, our total footprint, and again, we don't have a big deposit here, but our total footprint will be less than 300 acres. And what we will do as we go through that, it'll be concurrent reclamation. So we'll actually be covering it up as we go. When we're done, you'll drive by, and unless we leave a head frame up, which they never do, unless it's for historical value, you won't know that the mine has been there. That's the great thing. It's like Trench, had they done a better job with those tailings facilities, nobody ever knew there was a mine there, right? And that was using technology from the 1990s. So, no, I appreciate that. As far as the office, I know, as far as employment goes, one of the things that you'll learn about me is that I'm very sensitive to, I like to hire locally, and I'm not saying it's a mandate. There's certain skill sets you can't hire locally, but I believe this is a unique environment, Southern Arizona, and transplanting people from other parts of the world or the country to come to a place like this aren't always as easy as you think it is. And so I like people who understand the environment, understand the communities, and want to be here, because those are usually the best employees. Right. As far as office, I just didn't think letting Greg drive 5 minutes to the office was worth it. So I thought he should have to get up and, I was sensitive to that, and we were small enough at the time when we closed the office that we needed to be close to an airport. We needed to be close to the engineers we were working with at the time, and that was the decision. Eventually, there may be an office here. There will probably not be an office in Tucson, because all the facilities will be very close to the site, and that's where you want all your key management. In the event of whatever, they need to be able to react quickly. And when you're in a home office someplace else, it doesn't always work that way. So eventually, I would imagine the critical mass will all be at the site, and maybe a field office here or possibly Tucson. But we'll certainly look at that, no doubt.
Would you please? I would hope that those 300 acres that you have over there, that those 300 acres could be transferred over here to the city of Nogales. It would be a great help for us.
I'd vote for it. Yeah.
But, thank you. A very good presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you for keeping our community in mind as you're moving along.
you guys are going to be a big part of it, no doubt about it. And, you know, one of the other things, and I'll bring this up, we've talked about, we want to do this. I don't know what the best timing for it is, but one of the things we'd like to do is to get a working group. Maybe somebody nominated out of this group, but a working group that there's more constant communication. And so that when issues, we talk about issues that could arise, like people, transportation, park and rides, those sorts of things. You know, we're going to have, you know, during construction, we'll have as many as 800 people on site. Those people need to stay somewhere. They're not going to move here permanent because they're temporary jobs, many of them. So we're going to have to house us. We're starting to talk to the facilities here in Nogales, especially, on where we're going to put those people. So, you know, we'd like to start a working communication with a smaller group that we can communicate with all the time about those issues. And get help from, you know, don't want to come once every 6 months and give a talk and say, hey, we need some help. We need 300 rooms here in Nogales, right? So we'd like to have that conversation more often than the less. So.
And thank you for helping all the local nonprofits. I think you've been a tremendous help for that.
We want to do a lot more of that. And, you know, in Patagonia, there's a few people who don't agree with what we're doing. And unfortunately, in the state of Arizona, like many states, it's very easy to file a nuisance suit. And I tell those guys, you know, I mean, the law allows us to do what we're doing. We're doing it with best practices. And if you've got a complaint, let's talk about the complaint. Let's make things better. But to go file a frivolous lawsuit just to slow us down, I tell them, my budget's like everybody else's at home, or at least like mine at home. It's so big. And I can either spend it in the community doing positive things, or I can spend it in Phoenix and Washington, D.C. on attorneys who have never been to Santa Cruz County or probably will never come to Santa Cruz County, Arizona. And I can tell you what my preference is. You know, we're always open. If there's something we can do better, or, you know, if you know, we're not doing something right, you know, I'm happy to hear about it because I can assure you we can fix it. But when it's just a delay tactic, you know, nobody wins. Nobody wins. They think they're winning, but nobody wins. So anyway, that straw's out there if you guys want to grasp it. We do want to get a working group together as we go forward here so that communication is more frequent rather than less.
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. I guess we have one Councilman Rojas that would like to say something.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Mr. Taylor, the job training, what would that entail? What are you looking for as far as the skill level of the employees that you're seeking? Could you give us a little rundown on that, possibly?
There's certain things that will be, there's certain things that you can't get trained in school for, like drilling. But we're starting to talk to Caterpillar about, you know, working with them because diesel mechanics is huge. Welders, you know, all those things can be taught at least at some level at junior college or even in high school. And so we've got to start developing those skill sets in the high schools and in the junior colleges around because, you know, population in Arizona itself is aging. And so we fully expect that our employees will be much like the demographics of the state. I'm not getting any younger. I mean, so, you know, we're going to need a constant flow. And like I said, we won't keep all of those people. There'll be better jobs. They'll want to go to other places. And so, you know, we've got to keep that training program going for a long period of time. But diesel mechanics, welders, electricians, those are things we can do in the schools. And then when you come to site, there's some, you know, working underground with electric power is not the same as it is on the surface. So there's some specialty skills or sets around that. But most of them will be trained outside with basic skill sets. And once you come onto the mine site, you'll be fully trained on the mine site. So I say it'll be a big program.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, Mr. Taylor, just a question. Did you say, is this an open pit mine or?
All underground.
It's a legit underground mine?
Yes, sir. The top of the ore body is about 800 feet below the surface, and it extends down to about 3,500 feet underground.
And you say the business is in Vancouver. That's just for the stock exchange in Vancouver.
Actually, for Toronto.
On Toronto.
Yeah.
And what's it under in the Toronto Stock Exchange?
AZ. AZ.to.
AZ.to. Thank you. Very, very interesting. Very
Yes,
interesting.
Vice President.
Mayor, if I may, I'm just going to throw some information out there. At the Arizona Leagues of Cities and Towns, I was in contact with the Arizona Pipe Fitters Union and the Torres Lago, and they're very interested in providing training for people here in Santa Cruz County. So it might be a good idea, maybe Councilman Lucero or yourself can reach out to them and see how they can help, and they have the latest technology.
They're set up to train.
They have
That would be good.
awesome training program, and I think that would be useful for our community, and it would help you too. So
Absolutely.
maybe you can reach out to them.
Jumpstart.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, and thank you for a great presentation.
Well, thank you.
And good luck.
I won't need every inch of that, you bet. Anyway, Council, thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity. Any questions, I'd be happy to leave a business card, my number, my email. I'm always available.
Well, Mr. Taylor, before you leave, I want to thank you. I think when I first came into the council, I received an invitation to visit the office here in Fort Regular as a councilman, and he kind of spoke clear to elected officials of the plans, and I see that from your plans that you had from back then, you followed that straight line of what you had kind of proposed back then and what your hopes and goals were. And I didn't think it was going to become a reality so quick, but I salute you for the way your whole company has been able to accomplish what they have in the last few years. And also want to thank you on behalf of the city of Nogales for helping us out, kind of partnering us up with the kids in school. There's some programs that the city of Nogales gets involved with, Jump Start or Jump Back to School, both in Nogales and in the Rio Rico school systems. And of course, the city has, when it comes up, they afford me to get the materials, but then you reimburse us. So it's actually on your tab, it's on your watch that you've been helping the local kids here in the school systems to be able to facilitate the needy kids that sometimes need those school supplies, and it sure makes it easier for them to jump back to school when school starts. So I want to thank you so much for supporting and helping us out in that area.
Happy to do all we do. Remember, they're young miners. We see them as young miners. Yeah, M-I-N-E-R-S.
Councilman Newman, did you want to-
Have you met Mr. David Lowe?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I was going to get you a book.
Unfortunately, it was in Peru.
Did
but yeah,
you read the book?
I have not. I've
Oh,
seen
okay.
it, but I haven't read it. Yeah.
All right.
What a great guy.
Maybe I'll get you a book.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions from the council? Or, yes, Councilman.
Mr. Taylor, Little League and all that, we want to thank you for supporting the baseball, all that. I think your process would be, here, and I've seen my son just got employed by you guys 3 weeks ago, and I've heard very good comments about the way you treat your employees, the way you care about your employees, and I think everybody that I've talked to that has had a relative or a friend that's worked at your mine right now is very positive. So I think you guys are doing the right thing and trying to bring in the right people and everything. And I think there's a lot of people interested in coming and work for you guys. Good job.
Thank you. One thing I'll say is that, right now, the work we do in the community and stuff, you can see that we don't produce anything right now. We're kind of like the government. We spend money, we don't make anything. But it is just the cheapest money I have, even today with zero interest rates. The cheapest money I have cost me 18%.
Really?
The cheapest. And so it's a figment of the business. That's just the way the business works, right? And the point with this is, I'm not crying or any of that, but I'm making a point. If we're able to do these things today, on somebody else's money, the sooner we can get this project up and running with revenue rolling on our side, there's so many more things that we can do, right? At that point, the money gets a little cheaper. And so that's the point that I try to make to the guys in Patagonia, that, I want to spend my money in good ways. The leagues, Boys and Girls Clubs, all those things. Without profit, there's no nonprofits. And the sooner people understand that, like I say, you'll find that Arizona mining is going to be a very large supporter of all the communities. We just want to get to a point where we can do more.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Taylor.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So that was a nice presentation, and kind of encourages here in Nogales. There's companies like Arizona Mining out there that take consideration of the whole environment, our communities, and also offering a future for us. So I want to thank you also, Councilman Uceda, for being part of that.
I just wish more of you guys would have asked questions about keeping an office here in Nogales.
Oh. well, there we go. Okay. But going forward, on number 6, we have our liquor license. We have number 1, we have consideration and possible action of liquor license 207-012.
Move approved, Mayor.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second on that. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye to approve.
Aye.
Motion approved. We have number 2, consideration and possible action of liquor license 2017-13. Again, approval of recommendation of the issuance of liquor license for Teresa June Morris.
Move to approve, Mayor.
We have a
Second.
motion. We have a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
No nays? Okay, motion carries. Going to number 7, orders. Consider and possible action of order 2017-10-050, in order of the Council of the City of Nogales approving the extension of an agreement with the Nogales Police Officers Association. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved, Mayor.
Before you do that, I just want to bring a couple of changes to your attention. On page 14, there's a typo. It was referenced to section 12.8 and section 11.5 of the agreement. That was changed to the reference 11.7. And then Article 20, which is on page 23 of your exhibit, that's been deleted completely. Okay, so I'll make those changes on the final exhibit.
The rest is fine?
The rest is fine.
Okay.
Now you can make your motion. Please.
Everything was deleted on that.
So it would be a motion.
Motion with the corrections and modifications made by the city attorney.
So move. Second.
So we have, with those modifications and removals, we have the motion to approve and a second. Do we have any further discussion? Yes, Councilman Barona.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to ask on Article 10-1 on this second handgun. Can either the city attorney or the chief of police give me an idea why does a second handgun have to be approved?
Strictly because of liability concerns. And what Article 10 says is that with the approval, they can have a second handgun, has to be approved by the chief of police, but there has to be in connection with that approval a training and certification to make sure that he's qualified to carry that second gun. Just the same type of training that he would be required to undertake for his primary weapon. And that's strictly liability.
Just for liability. Okay. Thank you. And also on 11-7 on the bulletproof vest, this thread level 2, I don't know what that means, and if it's appropriate to have a threat level 2 vest now or a better quality vest, the way things are happening throughout the country. And how do you know when a vest expires? Is it just because you say it expires here every 5 years? What if a vest expires before 5 years?
Each type of vest has a useful life, and these are minimum. If obviously we could, it would not be in our interest, liability-wise, to have them use a vest past the useful life. So they're most of them are past. They have a useful life past the 5 years. But what they've requested here, we've agreed to, is that at a minimum, they're going to be looked at every 5 years, just to assure that they're good.
So they'll be looked at. And is there something, I went through it and I couldn't find anything on who is required to wear a vest. Because I see a lot of law enforcement officers that don't wear a vest, and I think that's a liability to the city of Nogales when they don't wear a vest.
That's certainly a question that can affect liability for the city, but that's usually handled by the standard operating procedures that each department has, and whether or not a vest is required and when it's required. We don't have a general policy that's been passed by the council, but maybe the chief is, I'm not familiar with the standard operating procedures, whether or not a vest is required. For them to wear the vest.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Verona, approximately 5 years ago, we put out a directive that all field officers shall wear a vest. And if you notice, some of them have they have a shall. Basically, they put their vest in the shall, and that makes it more comfortable, so they can take it off and put it on, depending on where they're at and stuff like that. Sometimes they come into the office and write reports, and that gives them the opportunity to take off their vest and hang it behind their seat or whatever. But every field officer shall wear a vest.
So, how many law enforcement officers in here are wearing a vest?
Everybody that's on the field.
I'm not asking that. How many in here are wearing a vest?
None.
Well, you see, that's a concern for me for something because there's a purpose to the vest. And if he's hit and the vest could have protected where he could take out the gun and protect some of us, that's a difference. So, but that's, I'll address that. I don't know if I'm stretching it here on our future agenda, but you should all be wearing a vest, okay? And
How about us?
nobody will shoot at you.
Why should we worry?
We need a threat level of 10 instead of a 2.
Yeah, right.
He's just speaking because of his proximity to a certain council member. That's why he's worried.
Mayor, could you please get a hold of this meeting, please?
Continue, Councilman Verona.
That's
No,
why I
I'm not
moved.
finished
Okay.
That's why I moved.
All right. So we have Councilman Verona making a point here. Safety and health.
Thank you.
But I'll address that under future agenda items, okay? Also, I did speak with Victor Harrington, the president of the Police Officers Union, and he told me that the negotiations went extremely well, very positive, and he was happy with everything that was being presented to us. So I do want to, he's not here, but I do want to say that for the record, so there's no comebacks to us. We did have a positive, that everything that was negotiated is on here, and I'm glad to see that we're continuing with the uniform allowance of that though too. So he's positively, and I see everything here. That's very positive. There's some concerns that I have, but it's for the safety of everybody, because if you're safe, the community is safe.
Mr. I don't know if I could just add to the question that you asked as far as to why we're not wearing vests. This directive goes to patrol personnel. However, we're administrators, so we're 95% in the office. But can guarantee that every officer in here, every lieutenant, every commander in here, including myself, we have a vest in our vehicle. And depending on the situation, we're ready to put it on and do whatever we need to do.
Well, I would like to see those vests when you're in here to protect us though too.
I'll put it on next month, sir.
Would you? Thank you. Mr. Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions or comments from the council?
Mr. Mayor, the only question that came up is the uniform allowance, is it back to how it was, or Yes, it is.
Yes, it was. And the reason we did it at this point, all the union contracts will expire at the same time. So at that time, if the city manager wants to address a change, it will be across the board for everyone. One of the problems at this stage was that we had outstanding contracts that would have resulted in different treatment for different unions. And we decided at this juncture anyway, let's continue as we were.
As it was.
And then that'll give the city manager a chance to address it later on with everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Councilman Rojas. Any other discussion? Seeing none, then we'll call for the question, and all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? None? Motion carries unanimously. Going to number 2, consideration and possible action of order 2017-10-051, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, authorizing the purchasing department to purchase one audio logging recorder in the amount of $60,834.79.
So move, Mayor.
Second. We have a motion and seconded to approve. Any discussion? Yes, Councilman Barona?
This is just one of the, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rivera, this is just one of the areas that during our, I noticed that we've lost some information and everything. But this is, and I noticed that you're paying for this because you save some money not filling certain positions, according to what I see in the background. But this is one of the areas that for next year, when looking at the budget here, that I just want to be more brought into the budget hearings a little bit more, because this should have been presented to us earlier, and we shouldn't depend on having to save money in positions where we should have, something of this concern, we should have set some money aside, so this should have been purchased in July and not now. My point is this, not so much this, but Mr. Rivera, I just want, as you're going through the establishing of the budget, that I would like to be brought into different departments and what their concerns are, so we can assist. You know, Mr. Machado is always telling us it's a city manager form of government. You're right, we shouldn't be doing something. But the budget is ours, and I want you to be more inclusive of us on the next budget.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman Barona, this had nothing to do with the budget. It did not come up during that time frame. This was a result of a change out of the 911 system, which is funded by the state. When that was being conducted, it was brought to our attention that the analog system that is currently in place was going to require an additional patch at our expense to fix it to be compatible. At that point, it was a decision that was made to upgrade it to a digital system that would be compatible with the system and not require us modifying the 1955 Oldsmobile to be usable today. So it had nothing to do with the budget, nothing to do with anything. It was timing along with the state mandated upgrade to the 911 system.
But here again, it says right here that you've had to go to the public safety answering point to help rebuild the system several times because it was been outdated. It didn't become outdated when you put the new analogs in. It was outdated way before that, and it should have been brought to our attention way before that. We shouldn't be waiting through this. Well, this is telling me, your background is telling me, this has been a problem for a while. So let alone that. I'm just trying to say, please be more inclusive of us, because the budget is our responsibility to the community.
But there will be situations like this that occur as time progresses. So.
Okay. Maybe it could have been brought up at an earlier time, but the way you explain the background here, I think it should have been brought up way before. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Barona. Anybody else? Any points of discussion? Seeing none, I'll call to the question, and all those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. Going to the next page. Still in orders. Number 3, consideration and possible action of order 2017-010-052, in order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, approving a certified local government pass-through agreement to provide funding for the 2018-2022 strategic plan for the Nogales Main Street revitalization and historic preservation.
Move to approve, Mayor.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Do we have any discussion? Yes, Councilman Barone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask if Mr. Ehrman would come up and give us an explanation about this, because a lot of the council people have brought up this, and I want the community to know that this is what's going to be happening in downtown for revitalization. So if you could just give us an overview, Mr. Ehrman, Mr. Mayor, if you could
Thank
please.
you. Yes,
Just so we can know what's happening, so we can
come
respond
to the
to our
podium and
community.
state your name and address and what you do.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. My name is Neil Sermon. I live at 3019 North Calle Coronado, Nogales, Arizona, and I'm here representing Nogales Community Development. Nogales Community Development has put together a plan and applied through this for certified local government funding to work on a strategic plan for the downtown area, including and being an inclusive process. The total cost of the project is about $22,000. It's really bringing in some consultants from the outside to engage with our community. The request to the Arizona Parks Department, Certified Local Government Funding, is a request for $12,500, of which we match 60% of it. So Nogales Community Development will be coming up with about a $9,800 match to this. This project will be over a period of 6 months and come out with a final product. The idea is, first of all, to put together a presentation to start to engage community, and then we will, over a period of time, have a series of community engagements. We'll work with, reach out to elected officials here in the city of Nogales with our consultants to get their input. We will work with city staff and department heads to get their input on the opportunities and the challenges. And then we'll go out to local community and invite the public to come in to a series of community sessions to have input with the consultants and listen to them. And then we're going to reach out to business owners in the downtown area of Nogales and property owners in downtown Nogales to get their take and their input on it, so that we understand what the community's vision is and what the community's desire is, and then what everyone feels are some of the challenges and impediments to the future, and what some of the opportunities are. And then with that final product is to come back to the community and deliver a product that then different organizations, depending on the work they do, whether it's the City of Nogales, Nogales Community Development, right now Mariposa Community Health Centers involved with a healthy communities, healthy places initiative that's being funded through the EPA. And so there's community engagement in that. So it's really kind of connecting with all the community partners and then figuring out what are steps that people could take. Obviously, we all know that all property is private, most of it, and so it's really about, reaching out to private property owners to see what their willingness is or what the opportunities are, and can we bring resources to the table to support that. And then the other thing is, a key component of this piece is for us to go out and get a detailed inventory of the properties in the downtown area of Nogales. So when we speak of downtown area of Nogales, for us, it's Nelson Avenue and East Street to Morley to Banks Bridge up here, across the Americana, back down Grand, Arroyo to Terrace, to Elm to Terrace to the border. It's not finite, in other words, and it's the neighborhoods in and around that. And then with a detailed commercial inventory, meaning who owns the properties, how do we reach out to them, what they're valued at, photographs of them all, so that when we're all having conversations, we know who we're talking to and what we're talking about.
Will you be actually going into asking permission to go into the properties and kind of.
Yeah, so the
visual on them?
first thing we'll do is get the inventory and talk to private property owners. Then to figure out who they all are and if they're here. Number one, do they want to do something with their properties? Are they okay with what their properties are? Because if they are, there's nothing there. But there are some properties in downtown Nogales that actually have been not used for 20, 30 years. If you go back on Nelson in the back there, the old Cape warehouses have not been used for well over 30 years. And then there's some abandoned buildings that are down there. How do we engage with those? And then engaging with certain property owners that no longer live here and asking them what they want to do with their properties. No one's going to do anything to their properties, but if there can be resources brought to them or find buyers for them that can do something with them, and then figure out where the partnerships lie to enhance the downtown area of Nogales, and then to reach out for kind of new uses of businesses and find different kinds of investors.
Okay. I know that it said PZ here, where they were kind of introducing this tonight. So she's been in
Yes,
touch
we've
with
we've been reaching out to actually Mr. Rivera and Mr. Kissinger and Mr. Dillon to engage them in the process. So this is, it's an engagement process. It's something we've done in the past. We have the relationships with the folks that do this. So, and this came out of a series of different community meetings. So there's been a group of people here meeting on Morley Avenue, a lot of people having discussions about what's going on. Then, we brought the State Historic Preservation Officer down here to meet with people in the community. So it's really just taking the conversation to the next level and coming up with a plan that's not any one specific organization's plan, but it's a community engagement piece.
Good. Well, thank you. That's what we needed to go. Continue to go to the next level until it gets done. I mean, I think you all have good ideas. You're bringing them together. You're getting more, and the more involvement you get from the property owners and the downtown folks, I think you will have a successful goal there at the end of the meeting.
20 years ago, when Nogales Main Street Association got started, and we changed our name in 2004, we had a 50% vacancy rate in downtown Nogales. So 50% of commercial buildings were empty. It's not that we did anything other than, Nogales Community Development's done some investment, but the city of Nogales has done a ton of investment downtown. Terrace Avenue was a big investment. The Morley Avenue project was a big investment. Some of it was underground infrastructure. A lot of it was enhancement work. And then there were private property owners who've invested in downtown too. Unfortunately, you can't make people do that, right? And I think that's the hardest part. We're going through a really difficult cycle now in the business, in the economics of business today, that part of this conversation is what are some of the other opportunities?
Can I ask you
Yes.
what your figure is for at this point of the vacancies in the downtown area?
That's a real hard one because we haven't. That's why we're going to take this inventory.
Okay.
But I think if I were Mr. Hanessian, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think probably Morley Avenue is probably a third empty. Is that pretty much?
I would say a third.
So, and then what's the most unfortunate piece? Back in the 80s, all the floors of all the buildings downtown were in active use. Okay, and then since the late 90s, 2000s, we're just seeing ground floors being used for active commercial use. So, you have the Olivelle building, which is a 5-floor building. You have the Capins building, which is 3 floors. It's now Victoria. Those are underutilized buildings. They have 2/3 of their footprint is totally not being used.
Thank you. Anybody else that like to ask any questions or?
Just adding to it, in 1981, we had some people from New York come down, and they said they had never seen a better retail area than downtown Nogales. They'd never seen anything like it, even in New York or LA or wherever. Nothing compared to the downtown Nogales retail area.
What things have changed?
Things have changed since. They completely changed. Of course, they've changed in Nogales, Sonora too. If you look at downtown Nogales, Sonora, I would say there it's 70% of the buildings are vacant.
Well, all we can say is continue to go forward, and hopefully you'll kind of help bring life back to that downtown.
Well, I think we all do. We'd like to be partners in it or facilitators of it. I think that's a role we play, and I think something for us to keep in mind, our glass is half full. We don't know what it's half full of, but it's half full. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
What kind of funding is it?
Okay, so going to number 4, consideration and, oh, wait a minute, wait, whoa, the brakes here. You're just helping us along with the discussion. Okay. All right, so is there any further discussion on order number 3?
No, Mr.
Okay, seeing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving this order, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? See no nays? Motion carried unanimously. We go to number 4, consideration and possible action of order 2017-10-053. An order of the Council of the City of Nogales approving the contract between the Nogales Housing Authority and Costos Roofing for the roofing project at various public housing sites in the amount of $62,350 funded by the Capital Fund Grant Arizona 20-23501-14 and Arizona AZ 20P023501-15.
So moved, Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? Yes, Councilman Zinn.
Just a question, I guess a housekeeping one. I'm wondering why we're not approving that as the Housing Authority Board versus the City Council.
You know, it's better addressed at a different session, but there is a reason for that. And I guess at this point what I can tell you is that we've determined that under our form of government and under the Housing Authority being a department of the City of Nogales, there can be no Board of Supervisors over a city department.
Commissioners, Board of Commissioners.
But I'm sorry, Board of Commissioners over a city department, and the governing authority, of course, is the City Council.
So it has to deal with the way the way our charter reads. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes,
Call for the question.
Councilman Barona.
Sure.
Councilman Barona, would you like
Mr. Martinez, is this a part of your strategic plan, or you're going to fix the roofs another 15 units next year too also? Or these are just because they're in bad shape?
Good evening. This is part of our 5-year plan. These properties were labeled and recognized by our maintenance staff that need immediate attention. But we've allocated money within our 5-year plan to do roofing projects. Not knowing exactly which properties at the time we created the plan, it leaves us with the ability to single out properties as we uncover the need. So in general, we have money allocated for roofing projects, and we spend the money as our maintenance staff recommends us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Machado, you left me spinning. Maybe at the reference to the question was asked by Councilman Luzon, at the next commissioners meeting we have, can you elaborate on that difference a little bit more? Because what's the purpose of us meeting as a commission?
There is none. That's why it's been eliminated. Okay. But what I'll do is next meeting we'll schedule a real short executive session. We'll go over that.
Okay. Because you left me spinning because I don't see the purpose of it. us meetings.
You will be receiving a letter that I sent out in connection with that. That might answer your questions. If it doesn't, let me know. We'll put it on the
Can I go for them?
on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman
Oh,
Rojas.
can we get
No, well,
vests?
I have a question also.
Robert, can we get?
No, he has to-
Can we get vests just in case?
No,
We're in a
we're gonna
dangerous
need the
situation,
vests.
you and I. We're in the middle here.
Okay.
Bad area.
Alex, my question is, on those units, the work is going to be done because you found leaks in those units.
No, not necessarily. It's been identified by our staff that sooner rather than later, those roofs will start leaking.
Okay.
So it's more preventive.
The other question is, have you, are these units actually being used right now, or?
Yes.
Or, yeah, so you just went just for preventive maintenance, not by, they were vacant or they're occupied or?
That is correct. We currently have 9 vacancies, but they're going through the remodelization process.
How long does it take to as you mentioned, the modernization project on a unit? What do they do? Do they actually, what is it all?
It really depends. If it had been occupied for several years and they left, and it probably needs some major remodeling, versus one unit that was turned over within a year or two. So it really depends on the unit itself.
But what's the normal timeline for?
A normal unit, after it's vacated, it's normally turned around within 30 days.
Oh, okay.
If it requires anything over 90 days, then we put the unit on standby and work on it.
Kind of suspended from use?
Correct, from our inventory.
Okay. Well, thank you. I just wanted to kind of get an idea of how that operates.
Absolutely.
And Mr. Mayor, just
Yes,
a comment. I know that we're competitive business, but thank you that the business is being given local.
And we try to do it as much as possible, even with our purchase of our trucks.
It seems like a decent price because you're talking about 21 units,
Correct.
and what's the average square feet on those units?
I don't have that information with me at the time, but I believe the information is on the packet as far as what units were identified and how big they were.
Well, thank you, Alex.
No problem.
Are there any other questions?
None at this time. I think Mr. Rojas has, Councilman Rojas has.
I'm just calling for the question, man.
Yes, okay. I think that's a good idea. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Seeing none? Approved unanimously. Okay, now we're coming close to the end here, and we're going to go into number 8, ordinance. Number 1, consideration and possible action of ordinance 02017-10-003, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Nogales repealing ordinance number 02007-03-001 and adopting Arizona State conflict statute. We have a motion to approve, a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
I reviewed the statute, and I think it's better that we go with this, that we be consistent the way we're treating the employees, that we also follow under that same line of thinking. The only part that I was really confused, I like the consistency now, that we're not being singled out in a different order, that doesn't rise to the statute, doesn't rise to the Arizona revised statute. So this keeps every employee within the city on the same playing field. The only thing that I noticed here that I'm a member of the school board and the community college, and in those two boards, my wife can't be hired. She's prohibited by law from working. But in the city, Mr. Machado, my wife could come and work for the city.
After the apply, we've got some vacancies.
No, that's not apply. But it's. I just thought we're prohibited because a spouse can't work, but here in the city to have consistency, and here in the city she can come and work here.
But I think what applies here is for the members. No, you can only Have two members from family working?
Yeah, but that's a little bit different. I guess, under the conflict, this is a conflict of interest policy. And under, a spouse could work for the city and not violate that conflict of interest policy. But in the personnel manual that you adopted, there's restrictions on that. Like a spouse can't, there's a limit of 2 relatives citywide. You can't have a spouse within the same department and so on. So there are limitations of that, but those are limitations that you've established, not this conflict of interest policy.
And Mr. Mayor, on top of that, in comparing a school district to a city with a school district, the hiring authority is the school board. With a city, you are not the hiring authority. So there's a difference. You would have to fire those individuals at the school district, whereas here they're fired by city staff.
Yeah, that is the point. That is true. That's, the superintendent cannot hire or fire. You can only recommend. That's true. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman. Any other questions? Any discussion? Seeing none, call to the question. All those in favor of approving signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Seeing none, motion carried unanimously. Oh,
Yeah, no, that's right. Seeing that it was unanimous approval, can I request a motion to waive the second reading?
So move.
Second.
yes, we have.
Mr. Mayor, I've never seen such quickness from Robert Rojas.
I'm trying to get going
Okay,
here.
so we have a first and a second. Any discussion?
I'm sure. You have another question, Dr. Bodon?
No, I got called for
Are you sure? You don't have a question on that? You want an explanation as to why we don't?
Seeing no
have-
discussion, call to the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. No nays. Motion, second motion carried unanimously. Okay, so now we're down to future agenda items. Anybody would like to look ahead and Councilman?
Mr. Mayor, Mr. Rivera, I just like just a report from the chief of police on the wearing of the vest and just an outlook on body cameras. And I think that's, Mr. Machado, maybe you can, an update for something. I want to listen to why we're not doing it.
Mr. Mayor, I mean, we can get a report, but I can tell you just right off the bat, it's money. It's a huge expense.
High cost?
Yes.
Would you please give us a report of that?
Okay, yes, Councilman, Councilman Verona, you done?
Mr. Genesian says that any time that city manager says it's because of money, Mr. Genesian says, yo lo pongo.
That's what I'm asking Marcy to say.
Oh, okay, Councilman.
Mayor, I'd like to get, if we can maybe get progress reports on the chip sealing program, on where they're at, just so I know you were made aware of what's happening down the road, but I think the public would probably like to hear how we're progressing, and I think there's some positive things that are coming about. So I think the more we can broadcast that, the better. The better PR. The more PR, I think it helps us all. So.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, we will get that on the agenda. Staff has been taking before and after pictures, and they're going to continue to do so until the end of the calendar year as weather permits. So we will have that for the next time.
All right. That sounds good. Anyone else? Okay. Seeing none, then I guess this meeting is now adjourned.
Buy drinks and give nothing.